Hi, welcome to another edition of Tightline Adventures. Today we are canning kokanee. Just wanted to go through the process with you, how I do it, and maybe share some tips and guides as far as doing the canning of the kokanee. Right now we're going to do our quart jars. I've got some pints in the cooker right now going. They're cooling off. So I'm going to let you know what ingredients that I like to put into my fish. We're going to do 3 tablespoons of Morton's pickling and canning salt to each jar. As we go through this, you will, depending on your flavor, you will add or subtract your salt however you like it, but it tends to work pretty good for me with this amount of salt for my quart jars. Okay, our salt is done. We're going to next put in 3 tablespoons of Catalina dressing. I like using the Catalina dressing just because it's got a lot of different flavors in it with this type of dressing. I've tried it before with just ketchup and different types of seasoning, but I really like the Catalina dressing. It tends to give it a really good flavor. I know a lot of recipes when you're canning fish says not to put any liquids or anything in with the fish, but it tends to be a little dry, I think. So I really enjoy this. These are kokanee that we caught this spring and last fall that we're canning right now. So 3 tablespoons of that Catalina dressing, the salt, and we're going to do half a tablespoon of liquid smoke to each jar. Next we're going to do some olive oil, and we're going to do 1 tablespoon of olive oil to each. Now all of our ingredients are in our jars. I'll be right back with you and show you how I cut the fish to put it in the jars. All right, we're back with you, and just prepped our jars with the ingredients. Now we're cutting our fish, our kokanee, to put into there, and I've done it both ways. You could, these smaller kokanee like this that we have, you could fit these into the quart jars, but I like cutting them up. It takes out of the jar easier. It's just easier to eat as far as table fare. So these fish, when after we catch them, when we are cleaning them, I like to take all the fins and everything off of them. It just helps with the prep as far as what we like to do as far as canning them. So just basically cutting them up into some good sized chunks. We'll fill these jars to about 1 inch or so from the top. You don't want to really jam them and create a big void, or I mean a big compaction in there, these fish, they will cook down. So when you take your jars out, they will be cooked down quite a bit. But I just like to cut these into smaller sections and fill our jars that way. I don't descale or anything the kokanee. I just clean them like we normally would, and chunk them up and put them in our jars. You can see the nice color in them. They're beautiful fish. This will be the last of it. Get these jars packed, and I'll be back with you to show you the process of putting them in the pressure cooker. Thank you. Right before we put the seals and the lids on, I like to go through and just make sure that everything is cleaned off real good, just so you get a good seal with your lid. All right, welcome back. We've got all the fish in the jars and all of our ingredients. I just pulled out our smaller jars. Those are cooling right now. Before I put them in our water, you got your ingredients there at the bottom. I like to usually just break it up just a little bit, just kind of get the salts and everything just down through the middle of the fish. They tend to, sometimes you'll get a clump of salt or something there at the bottom. It doesn't really boil through. Depends on how moist or how wet your fish is when you are putting it into the jars. And ours were fairly dry, so the amount of moisture that's actually in here is pretty minimal, other than the Catalina dressing and oil. I was going to say that the oil that we put in, the olive oil, does help break down the bones. So it's not needed, but the oil does help soften the bones. Once you bring these out, I'm doing the smaller jars at 70 minutes at between 12 and 15 pounds of pressure. Do not start your countdown until you at least achieve your 12 pounds of pressure, and then you can start your time. With these bigger jars, I'm going to put them in between the 12 and 15 pounds for 90 minutes. It tends to work out pretty good for me. I know we're using an open flame on this, and it's not recommended. I've never had an issue with it. I really don't like doing it in the house, especially in the summertime when it's warm. Usually like to try to do this in the winter time, but we had a pile of fish from the spring, so we needed to do a little bit of canning. So I'm going to put these jars into the water. And once all the jars are in there, you're going to want to check your water level. You're going to want your water level at least 3/4 of the way up the jar. This pot that I have will hold 7 of the bigger jars and 8 of the smaller jars. And we are right at 3/4 level with water in there right now. So I'm going to get it lit, get this going till where it's just about to a boil, and then I'll put the lid on and allow it to build its pressure. Once it gets up to the 12 to 15 pounds of pressure, I'll start my timer. Just kind of hang out and watch it as you're going, because it tends to, especially with the open flame, it tends to fluctuate a little bit. So just kind of pay attention to it. I'll be back with you when we're done with this batch of fish. All right, welcome back. We are just finishing up with the second batch of kokanee right now. Just getting them out. Looking pretty good. Everything went well. Don't have any problems with the jars, any problems with the seals. They're still really hot. If you could kind of see, they're still boiling. So with the temperature that we're boiling them at basically 12 to 15 pounds of pressure, we're achieving anywhere between 240 to 250 degrees. And at that boiling point, you're going to eliminate any bacteria, any molds, anything that would ever grow inside the fish that we're canning. Makes the bones completely soft, everything's still edible. You can eat the bones, which, like I said, are soft, so we don't have to worry about flaying any of the bones out. So just a great process. And so it makes a really good spread using a little bit of Philadelphia cream cheese or whatever you would like, some mayonnaise, some ranch dressing. It's good with crackers, good with smoked cheese, good with deer salami, elk salami, bear sausage. Just a good complement for a great snack. We eat a lot of it in the wintertime, watching football and just having friends over. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being a part of the canning of the kokanee. Please put in any comments or any suggestions. We look forward to seeing you on the water.
Thank you so much for joining us today for canning of our kokanee. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your other angler friends. And we'll see you next time on the water.